request to speak card again there outside the back doors. Please complete that, bring to us, and we'll be glad to have you speak when the time comes. First of all, I'd like to thank you everyone for being here tonight. I know it's the holiday season. It's getting to be busy for everyone. We thank you for coming out. Just to do some introductions, first of all, my name is Matthew Williams. I'm the city manager for the city of Litchfield Park. To my right, this is Mr. Keith Derneski.
I'm Keith Derneski. I'm the city engineer for Litchfield Park.
We also have several representatives here from MAG. MAG is one of the acronyms that the city uses. That means the Maricopa Association of Governments. They work with all the cities in Maricopa County. We have Mr. Bradley Williams here with us tonight. Bradley will be doing part of the presentation. And we also have Tim Stroud here with us as well. Thank you both for being here tonight. I would also like to recognize we have some officials here from the Arizona Trucking Association. Thank them for coming out tonight. If there are any comments they'd like to start, they're welcome to. Also, as far as city council goes, thank you, Mayor Tom Show, for being here. And Councilmember Clay, thank you all for coming. I don't think I missed anybody. If I missed anyone, it wasn't intentional. With that being said, we'll get started. And again, as I said, we're going to do some introductions. Tonight we're going to do a brief project synopsis. There'll be a presentation by MAG. There'll be the presentation by city staff. And at the end, there'll be the public comment Q&A. Again, for the Q&A, we ask that you fill out a card because we need your name, address, etc. But we'd be glad to have you speak when that time comes. Next slide, please. The presentation tonight, again, will be in two main sections. There will be the MAG section, and there will be the city section. And at this time, I'm going to turn it over to MAG staff, to Mr. Bradley Williams.
Thank you, Matthew. It's a pleasure to be here. Very happy to participate in this meeting. I would imagine many of you are now thinking, well, who is MAG? And why are they looking at the issue in Litchfield Park? So let me... Is this better?
Yes.
Okay, I'll start again. Many of you, I'm sure, are wondering who is MAG and why are we looking into this problem in Litchfield Park? So let me start by trying to answer those questions. Go to the next slide. MAG is the Metropolitan Planning Organization for Maricopa County. It includes all of Greater Phoenix, with a membership that includes all 27 cities and towns within our area, 2 counties, and 3 native nations. We conduct planning and make policy decisions on a number of key areas, including transportation, to facilitate safe and smart travel, as well as the economy and growth, environment and sustainability, and improving quality of life. We're run by the MAG Regional Council. That council, the mayor of Litchfield Park is a member of that council, as well as all the other 27 mayors, plus representatives from the 2 counties and the native nations. All important decisions made by MAG are made by vote of the regional council. We also have staff members that sit on 5 different technical committees, and your city manager is on the management committee for MAG. So that's who we are. Why are we here? For those of you who can read the small print here, we've heard that the city of Litchfield Park has concerns that commercial trucks passing through the city are creating unacceptable impacts. And at the current time, they're traveling on Camelback Road, which is subject to the ban on through truck trips in Litchfield Park, but the city has put a stay on enforcing that temporarily while we take a look at this and try to provide some information. So we understand that the city is interested or thinking about removing the ban, removing the stay and continuing the ban on Camelback Road. We also understand that outside of Litchfield Park, there are other stakeholders, businesses and communities who are concerned that that will have an impact on their businesses and communities as well. And so we've been asked to take a look into this issue. When we do studies like this, we ask member agencies to help us. And as you can see in the slide here, there are a number of agencies and jurisdictions that are participating with us in this study. There are other jurisdictions near Litchfield Park who are not actively participating, but being very helpful in our data collection. So, what is the purpose of the study that we're doing? Well, let me begin by saying what we're not planning to do. Our study is not intended to resolve this issue. That will be done by other people in other venues after our study is done. Next slide. So what we're doing is to provide information on how many trucks are passing through Litchfield Park and quantifying the impacts on noise and vibration, etc., that come from that. Okay. Then we will identify possible remedies to mitigate that. And there are many different kinds of remedies. Regulation is one, engineering remedies, operational remedies. We'll look at all of the remedies we can find and evaluate how effective they might be and what their costs might be. And we will then provide that in a technical report. And our job is then done. That information will be used by others to discuss and negotiate and come up with a solution that's acceptable to all. So let's look at our objectives. In Litchfield Park, I'm going to go ahead and read these actually. We want to investigate the nature of the truck trips on Camelback Road and the impacts they have on the surrounding communities today and in the future. And identify all reasonable potential means of alleviating those impacts, assess the effectiveness of each remedy and associated costs, and present our findings in a report. Now, that's the perspective from inside Litchfield Park. There's also a perspective outside of Litchfield Park. It's very similar. And here you can see that the area we're looking at we call the Southwest Valley, and it's bound by Loop 303 on the west, I-10 on the south, the 101 on the east, and Northern Parkway on the north. So in this area, we're also investigating the nature of truck trips throughout that entire area and the impacts they have on the surrounding communities, both today and in the future. And the same as the other one, identify all reasonable means of alleviating the impacts, assess their effectiveness, and present our findings in a report. I'm a little bit uncoordinated here. Okay, so our methodology is fairly simple. Collecting data. We've already completed data collection. Maybe some of you had our people come and use your yards to monitor sound and vibration. That process has been completed. We've done traffic counts by classification, so we have cars and trucks of various sizes. We've done all that data collection. Then we move into, and we're also still working on getting as much detail we can on ongoing and planned new development projects that will be generating truck traffic, so that as we forecast into the future, we can do the best as possible in predicting how many more trucks there will be throughout this area. With that information, no, don't change the slide yet, sorry. With that information, we begin the analysis. The analysis first will be building models so that we can quantify them not only for the area where we did the counts and surveys, but for the entire study area. So we have that information and we have it for existing conditions and for the year 2040. Then we will look at, we'll identify and assess all possible mitigations and remedies to deal with these impacts wherever they are. And then lastly, we'll publish our findings. And that leads me to, I think, the last slide, which is what we anticipate will be in the report. And basically, that report is going to be a toolbox of all the possible remedies to deal with the noise and vibration and other impacts of heavy trucks passing along any street and mitigating those impacts to the surrounding community. So that will be the end of our study. We have the information. We will give it to all of the stakeholders who have an interest in this, and they will be the ones who take the information and come up with a satisfactory resolution.
Is the form for questions, or is it, Matt, to help me out here? The form is to speak during the open forum, but if there's a question on a specific issue that Mag just stated, do we ask it now, or do we hold it all for later? Just a process question.
If it's a technical question, I would say we would ask it now while Mag is here.
So the technical question would be the
Do
study.
you your microphone, John?
No, I don't think I do. Do I?
Nope.
So the technical question would be the actual study where you said you've done the noise study already, and some of us have been reached out to. I know the community I represent, we had 9 sensors put in our community, but it was for only a 15-minute period, very short period. So personally, I worked for the FAA for 35 years. I've done airspace redesigns in 3 different metroplexes in Miami, in Colorado, and out in LA. And noise modeling and or studies took a heck of a lot longer than putting out sensors in a community for 15 minutes. So I guess I may have been led astray a little bit. I was told that that initial part was being used to validate the model, but is that the actual data collection we're talking about right now?
The program for collecting the information was put together by the experts that we have that do this every day. And it comes in 2 parts. We have the short-term monitoring that was done at dozens of locations around, which was primarily for 2 reasons. One, to get the ambient noise levels that are occurring when there aren't trucks. And then in addition to that, to sense the increase that would come when trucks go by. At the same time that that was being done, we also have air quality and noise and counters that are counting the vehicles and counting the trucks along Camelback Road so that we can tie together these things. So the data on how many trucks there are and the noise that they're generating is primarily going to be captured with the 3-day counts that we did along Camelback Road. Going into individuals' properties was to measure how far that ambient noise comes as you get further away, and also when trucks go by to sense how much that influences the noise levels.
So one follow-up question. So when MAG does this study, is it a standard? Is it an industry standard that you use in Glendale, that you use now in Scottsdale and other communities, or are there levels of service that are different than the specific study we're doing?
When you say levels of service, are you referring to noise and vibration, or?
I'm referring to depth of study.
Well, the model is being calibrated to the data that we've collected. This model is being used. It's not a new model that's been created now. It's a model that's been used for decades, and it's just a matter of putting in local information to be able to fine-tune that model to fit this location. But one of the things the model is designed to do is to take a look at different traffic levels, different congestion levels, and factor that in. And the model tells us how much that is going to change the noise and vibration. So we get that, even though we have a small area that we calibrated to. We wanted to be sure that was along Camelback Road, which is the primary location of the issue. But the model allows us then to take that out to other areas that may have more traffic, more congestion, different percentages of trucks, and we're able to capture the.
Last question, and now I'll give it up to anybody else. So does the model allow you to go back to model what historically it was 20 years ago when all these aggregate companies that were out on El Mirage and Camelback Road, when they first started, when all of us moved in here, how it's grown over the last 25 years? Does it take any of that into account? Because it seems to me that this is today forward projection. Does it have any rear view mirror involved in this at all? Because most of the folks here are probably dealing with the way it was 15 years ago, and in an industry that's been unchecked for quite some time. Now we're finally here, right? The straw broke the camel's back on Camelback, literally. So is there any backward looking for the model, like the way it was historically? Either based on industry growth or number of truck operations or revenue of the companies or anything like that?
I think that the reality for that is that the model looking forward is based primarily on what MAG has done in modeling the future. We have models that take us to 2030, 2040, 2050, and those models take in all the growth in population and economic growth, new employment, and different kinds of land uses around the whole region. So that's being done to lead us forward. We don't have a database of that information that takes us back 25 years.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
One other quick question to follow on that. In the weighting or the metrics that you're collecting with regards to traffic along Camelback Road, was the fact that Litchfield and Camelback intersection have been under construction for a year now, that would severely impact numbers. I know I avoid it with all intent and purpose, and I'm sure every trucker does as well. So what weighting did you apply to that particular metric?
But one of the other things that we're doing is we are looking at the condition of the roads themselves, looking at the road design. One of the possible mitigations is changing the road design or simply repaving it. These are the kinds of mitigations we'll be looking at. And so we're looking both at the existing condition of the roadway as well as looking in the future as to what we might be able to do to design that roadway so that it propagates less noise and vibration.
So I guess I was asking more with regards to volume.
And I can follow that up. I think when the measurements were taken, the majority of the heavy construction on Camelback itself was pretty much done. There's still the roundabout construction in the downtown City Hall area. Not as big of a concern for this study on Litchfield Road itself, but Camelback did have most construction equipment off there and traffic was restored. So we're pretty confident we're pretty close to existing conditions before the major activities started.
Thank you.
I have a question about the authority that MAG has, because Camelback Road is controlled by 4 different jurisdictions, and they don't seem to care what the other one does. I mean, I'm literally, it's true. I've been to the hearings, and I don't see where anybody has a coordinated plan that says, I'm not sure your study, if they don't have to follow it, what good is it? Why are we wasting our money? If they don't have to follow it, they just get to do what they want to.
Well, I can't speak to how the stakeholders are going to resolve this issue. Well, perhaps one of you two would like to talk about this. Let me only say that our role in this is very limited. It's limited primarily because it's not our decision to make. We have stakeholders that have vested interest in this issue. They need to resolve it. We want to provide as much technical information as possible so that everybody has an even understanding of what might be done and what the problem actually is. And that will help all of the stakeholders together to resolve the issue.
And let me help follow that up. So when we do a project, and we'll talk about this in our portion of the presentation, and it should hopefully clarify some of this, but when we do a project that has this wide-reaching influence on a community, there are certain steps we have to follow. And right now we're in the infancy side of that process. We have designated as being an issue of concern to the community. So we have to start the process, which is data collection, analysis, figure out what's actually out there, because we can't just go out there and say it sounds loud, it looks like there's more trucks. We have to actually empirically calculate what's going on out there. That's where we are right now. There are several more steps that we have to go. To answer the other part of your question though, why does anybody have to listen to it? That's a very good question. To start off, we need this data to even just start the process. I've been part of a lot of projects where we get studies back and it says we need this to be a 4-lane or a 5-lane, but a municipality has decided, you know what, we're going to keep it at 2 lanes or 3 lanes because A, B, or C. Nobody has really an oversight on why this study should be followed or shouldn't be followed. What we're going to use is, as kind of Brad was saying, is it's a starting point for us to look at the data and say, yes, there is a concern, there is a problem, and here are our next steps to go. And that's what Matthew's going to kind of go into detail on this next part. I also had a question back there about stakeholders. When he uses the word stakeholders, I do want to clarify.
Yes, you keep mentioning them, but who are you referring back to other than the homeowners who are the stakeholders? Aren't we the taxpayers?
Well, so in the format of this study, here we go. So on Camelback Road, as somebody did mention, there are a lot of people that have rights, right-of-way or ownership, city limits. These are the folks in the immediate vicinity and within this study area. These are the stakeholders. Now, it's a royal, so City of Litchfield Park, we're a stakeholder. We represent the constituents of the City of Litchfield Park. City of Glendale, Goodyear, Maricopa County, and the base, and other folks. So when we use the word stakeholders, these are the folks we're talking about in this study.
Because Glendale has no homeowners off of Camelback. They only have the crosswalk.
Well, and that's something we'll talk about, but having property ownership along the corridor is not the only concern. MAG technically doesn't have any ownership, but they're involved, and they, as Brad kind of talked about, they're very regional. They have a lot of 27 cities, municipalities, and counties. They do a lot of the studying and modeling of the entire county area that all other municipalities use as a basis of their growth projections and their impacts. So Glendale is a constituent along the right-of-way. They use that in their models for traffic as well. So they're maybe not as directly impacted as people who own property and live on the corridor, but they are still a stakeholder. You had your hand up a little bit longer.
I had a question about the noise and vibration study that was done. I'm trying to understand, can you explain more about the calibration? Because I don't understand how 15 minutes at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday is sufficient to capture the noise and vibration that we're experiencing in the middle of the night when the ambient noise of the community is lower.
Sure, I understand. I'm not the expert who put the plan together. I can only explain it to the extent that I understand it myself. But the short-term counts, it's not necessary to have 72 hours of information to be able to calculate how quickly the noise and the vibrations dissipate as you move away from Camelback Road. So they need to primarily get that relationship. If you're 100 feet away or 500 feet away, how does the sound travel? How does the vibration travel through the particular geography here that it has to go through? So that's the reason they do those short-term counts. And whether it's a loud noise or a soft noise or high vibration or low vibration, it's going to have the same effects passing through. And they can measure vibration at different frequencies. They can measure the sound at different frequencies. And that's what the model does. It takes that and it allows the model then to say, okay, well, here's how that noise is going to start declining as you move further away. And we do several different locations because there are so many different scenarios. There could be a wall in between. There could be a drainage channel there that has big impacts on the result. It may be open and landscaped land. All of these have different character. And so I have to go through and find locations that can give all of these different characters, and it allows them then to calculate that model So it's not only what it sounds like when you're standing on the sidewalk in Camelback Road, but we need to have the model tell us how loud that noise is or how strong the vibration is as you move further away.
Right, but those sounds and vibrations would carry farther when there's less ambient noise in the community and less ambient vibration in the community in the middle of the night.
The people who are building these models have been building them for decades. And they just need certain data points, snapshots that they can use to calibrate the model. The model has been used, it's a long-standing model that's been used a lot. So it's not that they need to know everything, they just have to have a certain number of points that they can use to calibrate.
In the interest of time, we're going to move on to the next part of the presentation. I'm hand over to Matthew. Please.
I'd like to thank Brad and Tim for being here with us tonight. Thank you, gentlemen. At this time, we're going to go over to the city portion of the presentation. Again, when this portion is over, we'll open the floor for Q&A, and you're certainly welcome to speak on those. Again, if you would like to speak tonight, we would again ask that you please fill out a card with us. Our city clerk is at the back door. We'd be glad to give you a card to fill out. Again, please complete this bring up to us. Again, thank you, Mag staff, for your listening. So some things we're going to talk about. The development of Camelback Road over the years, as John spoke about. The latest changes. The general background of city truck restrictions. The study that you've already heard a good bit about. And the city's next steps. So when we were going through this process a year or two ago at this point, there was a lot involved in this. There was legislation involved. There was trips to the Capitol with me and my ACM and the mayor where we went to try to resolve this issue. And one of the things we talked about was that this first one, that the residential communities here along Camelback Road were here decades before the trucks were here. Decades before the city was even here. This wasn't even a city until 1987. But some of those beautiful homes you see along Camelback Road were built here in the 60s. Again, decades before this was an issue here, the homes were here. Litchfield Greens in the 90s. The Sun Hill Commercial Development 2001. We do have Paul Vanderveen here representing Sun Hill here with us tonight. Village Phase 2 in Palm Valley Unit 9, 2006-2007. Camelback Road was 2 lanes until 2000 from Litchfield to Dysart, and 2 lanes until 2006 west of Litchfield. So again, over the years, naturally, as traffic, as development has been done, things have changed. But as it's been said a lot in the last 5-10 years. We did revise our ordinance in May 2020. A lot of reasons why. One of those, of course, was the FedEx cross-dock facility. I think we're all familiar with this facility on Camelback. That was approved by Maricopa County in July of 2020. I will say there was 2 main requests for this project that the city put in there. One was that there be a red light built at Saraville and Camelback. There is a red light there today. The other one was that traffic exiting that facility had to go to 303. It had to exit right to 303. There would be signs, there would be arrows. Unless those trucks had a delivery or business in Litchfield Park, they would go to 303. We annexed Camelback Road in May of 2022 for a lot of reasons. I will be very clear about that. It was not just for trucks. One of it was it needs maintenance. Those of you that drive it every day, you know how bumpy it is. It needs to be repaved. Another thing, Litchfield Park, we pride ourselves on everything looking a certain way, and just to be honest, Camelback Road was not. We were going to improve Camelback Road to make it look better, to make it look like a Litchfield Park road. That's part of the process. We did have a lot of trucking industry attention after the annexation. We had legislative attention after annexation. I would say on that point, things like this don't just get done overnight. It was done on multiple council meetings, multiple agendas. In fact, we sent out letters to local trucking companies with a 90-day notice before this was to go into effect. Just so people could know what was coming. That's just the right thing to do. To let people know that, again, this is coming, expect this. We did come to a compromise after a lot of legislative tension last May that we would do a stay of Camelback truck restriction enforcement pending study completion. Again, that's the study we're talking about tonight. Just to be clear on this, the City of Litchfield Park truck ordinance restrictions are still in effect on all other city streets except for Camelback and Dysart. The reason we want Dysart is because Dysart is the city truck route. That was something we changed on the ordinance in 2020. For years and years, Litchfield Road was the city truck route. Obviously, Litchfield Square is being built, we're building a roundabout, we all see this. So the new city truck route became Dysart. So that's obviously we don't enforce on Dysart. And also, we agree not to enforce on Camelback because of the study. But all other city streets are restricted. We'll talk about what that means. Next slide. The original truck restrictions have been on the books since 2003. They've been on the books for a long time. Again, we changed these in 2020, as I just discussed. Also, it restricted through trucks within the city. I will be very clear on what a through truck means. If your business is in the city, your truck can run all day long in Litchfield Park. If your truck is doing a delivery in the city, your truck can run all day long in Litchfield Park. If your truck is doing a pickup in Litchfield Park, it can run all day long in Litchfield Park. You get that in. All that's restricted are through trucks. A through truck is a truck that's passing through, that's just driving through the city, that has no business in the city. It was also said that this ordinance didn't allow pickup trucks. I will tell you that is not true. I drive a pickup truck to work every day. I like to leave there. Pickup trucks are allowed in Litchfield Park. Again, all it restricted was through trucks. I don't mean that smart, but I will be very simple about this. It restricted through trucks. That's it. Go back to Again, we annexed Camelback Road in May 2022. Also, because the truck restrictions have been on the books for years, when we took in Camelback, Camelback automatically became restricted. We didn't just wake up and restrict Camelback. Rather, when Camelback became a city road, it became restricted automatically because it wasn't a non-restricted street. Hope that makes sense. Next slide, please. After we did this, there was an amendment to House Bill 2481 introduced on April 22 by Representative Pace. It was initiated and supported by the trucking industry. This amendment would have prevented cities and towns from having any truck restrictions on a highway that is a major arterial street that connects two or more local jurisdictions and would have taken effect retroactively from December 31st, 2019. What that means in English, for those of you that don't work in cities, is that any truck restrictions that passed after December 2019 would have no longer been valid. Bringing us to the MAG study that we began. Again, the MAG study started in May of 2022. There was a consultant selected in August of 22. I'm involved in that process. Our city engineer is involved in that process. One of the gentlemen in the audience asked about the money for this. Litchfield Park is not paying for the MAG study. All the cities participate in the MAG study. The cities want to work together on this. MAG is paying for this study. I'm going to be honest, I don't remember if it was $350,000 or $380,000. It was one of the two. But I can say that Litchfield Park is not paying for it. That is something that MAG is doing. Also, the cities work together. We spoke a lot with this about the city of Goodyear, with Glendale, with Maricopa County. There's a lot of, this issue affects a lot of people, a lot of businesses. Next slide, please. Again, some of this is review after MAG presentation, but the study's being completed by MAG. I think we've covered that. With the cities of Litchfield Park, Glendale, Goodyear, Luke Air Force Base, and McDOT. Acronyms. McDOT, Maricopa County Department of Transportation. They're actively participating in coordination meetings, data collection. We update city management, city council, mayor, residents, etc. This meeting tonight is part of this process. We will be having another meeting later this year, or I should say next year. And all this is wrapping up. We invite you to that one as well. The project will take no more than 1 year to complete. I realize for you that seems slow. Government studies take time. This is a technical study with the objectives of documenting the impacts of truck traffic making through trips in the city of Litchfield Park, identifying reasonable mitigation strategies, and assessing how those strategies will affect Litchfield Park and the surrounding jurisdictions. Key point here. No recommendations will be made in this study. I'll tell you why in a second. Rather, the results will provide a technical foundation for evaluating, proposing appropriate remedies to be undertaken. Again, what that means in English is that when the study is completed, that it will say that, one, is there a problem? Two, if there's a problem, here are things you can try to mitigate it. things such as sound walls, rubberized asphalt, various things. MAG will not tell us that if you do option A, you will mitigate it by 20%. That's not what this study does. Rather, it will say, is there or is there not a problem? And also, here's ways you can look at addressing it. And then the city will choose how it wants to do so. City of Litchfield Park's concerns. You guys know this. Quality of life for residents and visitors. I live near Camelback. I hear trucks too. We get the emails from you guys. We get the phone calls from you guys. I have people talking about that their kids are sick from exhaust. Their windows in their homes are shaking. Their yards are shaking. But they can't sleep because there's trucks at 4 o'clock in the morning. We get these calls. These calls have been going on for years. This didn't just start last year or the year before. Rather, we've been getting these issues raised for years. And naturally, as we get more trucks in the city, we're hearing from more citizens, right? Because it's affecting more people. We do want to verify the excessive truck traffic again if it's an issue and do that quantitatively. As Keith said, it's easy to say there's a lot of trucks. It doesn't work. We need to put a number on it and say there's this number of trucks, or there isn't. Specific issues today and in the future. We said noise and vibration, air quality, safety of traveling public, property damages and impacts. We are engaged in partnering with adjacent cities, McDOT, MAG trucking industry. We maintain Camelback Road as a 2-lane minor arterial in Litchfield Park. Litchfield Park borders, so when we took Camelback from the western boundary, which is where Sun Health joins Palm Valley. Paul, is that 146th?
Right, yes.
I believe it's at 146, right there in that area, on the western side. Where on the northern side of Camelback, where the desert stops and the houses begin, that's the city border. On the other way, we took Camelback to 127. The city borders going east. They're basically Burger King, if you're familiar with that area. But we took Camelback to 127, which is the red line. We'll also explore alternative truck routes, such as Northern Parkway. Next slide, please. Current state of truck study has been said as data collection. The noise and vibration recordings have been completed. MAG is still collecting traffic data to show existing counts, new counts, and previous reports and studies. To be absolutely clear, we do not have these numbers yet. We have not seen these numbers yet because research is still being done. We will not be showing you these tonight because we don't have them. We haven't seen them. Developing growth and seasonal adjustment factors and rates, development of other traffic models, again, current and future, and regional MAG model calibration. Obviously, I'm not going to hit on all this, but I'll hit on the mountaintops here. Next stages of the MAG study. We will show existing conditions with and without enforcement of the truck-bound Camelback. What does it look like both ways? Conditions in 2040, with and without enforcement. Quantify roadway traffic, noise, vibrations, etc. along the section of Camelback, as well as traffic conditions truck travel throughout the study area, as Brad discussed. Forecast models to 2040 and describe future conditions with and without enforcement of truck restriction. Yes, that does include future developments. I moved here in 2015. If you can't hear me listen to me talk, I'm not from Arizona. That being said, when I first came here 7 years ago, there was no traffic on 303. Go out there today, right? There's a lot more traffic. We all see the warehouses that are being built on 303. There's a ton of industrial development in the West Valley. That affects our roads. Potential remedies. Again, they won't tell us which one works best, just different methods. That's not their job. It's to say which one to recommend. But rather, here's possibilities. Identify various inventions we've discussed. These range of interventions will be broad and may include road design, maintenance, sound walls, restrictions on engine braking, otherwise known as Jake braking, time of day restrictions, regulated truck weight, number of axles, various things. Assessments will include positive and negative impacts. Again, the study will not recommend remedies. I think we pretty well covered that. Again, we'll see a draft and final study report will be prepared and distributed. We expect to see a draft sometime this spring. And we will have one or more presentations of the overall study at the end of the study. Again, we'll be having other public meetings again. We invite you to those. Next slide, please. Why do we have to do this process? As Keith said, large impact projects must go through a pre-design phase. This is part of that. It allows multi-jurisdictional involvement. As I said, the other cities, the county, Luke Air Force Base, all these groups are part of this. Satisfies the state legislative and federal public involvement requirements. It's part of this meeting tonight. Thank you for being here. Results of the study will help guide the city for our next actions, whatever those may be. City's next steps. Allow for completion of the draft study. Again, early January. City remains a project partner. Evaluate the draft study for initial assessments, magnitude. Provide feedback to MAG. Engage stakeholders. Determine need for additional data collection. I think a lot of you have hit on that point. If we feel that more data needs to be collected, we'll look at that. Seek state and county assistance on mitigations. Mitigations cost money. Next slide, please. Possible solutions pending the study completion. Again, we don't know these things yet, but just possible scenarios, okay? 1, potential sound mitigation efforts, such as sound walls, modernized pavement surface treatments, reducing speed limits, trucking hours, time of day, etc. Not saying we would do these, just options. Possible request for state funding for mitigation. We looked at this last year. City staff estimates these mitigation efforts, if we did some of the things you see above, easily $15 million all day long. These things are expensive. Reevaluation of Camelback Road truck restrictions, pending results of mitigation efforts. Encourage trucks to use Northern Parkway, Interstate 10, or Dysart Road. That's a key issue with this, is that there's only so many routes, east and west. North isn't hard, Dysart. But east and west, think about it for a second. I-10, McDowell, Camelback, Northern. Because all the others are restricted at some point. I don't disagree.
Indian school.
Indian schools are restricted in parts. That's it for our presentation. At this time, we're going to go before the public input, open Q&A. If anybody wants to put a card, please have them come up.
One technical question on what you said, Matt, just
Go ahead, John.
so I'm clear. The Truckers Association bill that was submitted to the state legislature with the drop dead of December 2019, how many trucking restrictions did that impact in the state?
It's my understanding only ours.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, John.
Nice target.
Sir?
It seems like all the paths for remediation are along the lines of capitulation. What's the legislative resolution there? The trucking industry is obviously put a shot across the bow. What are the cities doing? Lay down?
Honestly, I don't think we can answer that question. And honestly, I think it depends. It depends on what the study says. That's why I said that I don't want to put a certain plan out there because we don't know. Again, one option would be mitigation. Others would be to continue forward with restrictions.
What about putting the onus on the trucking industry to come forth with their study to show what their impact of their industry is going to have on our residents?
That's a good point, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. This time I'm going to start going to our cards. These are in no particular order, just in order to stack here, okay? Forgive me if I pronounce the names wrong. If I do, it's not intentional. Mr. Richard Brew. Brent. Sorry, sir.
You want me?
Right.
I've been a service provider to the trucking industry for the last 35 years. So I'm an advocate for free commerce for the trucking industry. I see some people in the room here wearing veterans hats. You know the essentiality of having good support. I think everyone sitting on a chair that got here somehow, drone didn't bring it in, think you've been to the grocery stores, you probably bought gasoline this week. You got clothes. How'd those things get here? So trucking provides employment. You have a lot of people that live in Litchfield Park supported by the trucking industry because they work for them. Correct? So it's essential. It has great economic value. And I understand what you're saying. And the trucking industry is one of the safest operating industries that exists, and they're an advocate for safety. So they're not ignoring what you're talking about. But keep in mind that there was a prior era in DC that we were trying to overcome all of the restrictions that are choking commerce and choking different industry groups, and trucking is one of them. You don't even know the amount of regulations that are upon a trucker. So once again, we are looking for the ability to operate freely on the roads, because that's their operating lane. This truck is on a road. So that's as simple as I can present it to you. Trucking industry is really what provides everything in your home.
I would point out that the people of Goodyear put together the tires to make the trucking industry run. So you're talking to the people that support your industry.
It's exactly right.
Okay?
At all costs.
At all costs. So we understand that. We don't need to hear the rhetoric. We want to know what you're going to bring forth to mitigate the noise.
Yeah, that's a little condescending, we understand.
Absolutely
But
condescending.
we don't want it in our two-lane road that isn't equipped to handle semi-trucks, when there are two alternate routes already here, and to put forth legislation that only affects the city of Litchfield.
Man, I gotta object to the format here. This is an attack from a citizen to a citizen comment that's out of line, and you know
It's
it.
out of line with the.
Everybody,
No.
let's follow them. Excuse me, everybody.
Not a debate.
We're not gonna let this happen. We provided comment cards to give everybody the fair amount of time. So we're at the point of Q&A. I'd like to follow the process of letting each individual speak, and then we can follow up with questions. But please do not attack. Please.
Agreed. If you'd like to speak, you're welcome to. Again, please complete a card. We'll be glad to let you speak. We have plenty of cards. Okay. Thank you. Next up is Richard Shows. Richard Shows. Come on up, sir.
Up to the front.
Yes, sir.
A booming voice can be. Okay, good evening. Richard Shows. I live in the Greens, Litchfield Greens. We built our home there in '98, and needless to say, there's been substantial change to when we first built it. We butt up against Camelback Road, right on Camelback. And of course, the changes have been significant, and they've talked about it. The 303 wasn't here. None of the industrial park was here. It was farmland. Understand progress. But, you know, in the summertime, 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock in the morning, probably 50 to 100 big heavy movers come by there, and the vibration. My wall, the out wall in our backyard, is on Camelback, so it's a Litchfield Greens wall. It's cracked in dozens of places. You can come to our backyard, look right through it, because I'm still amazed that it hasn't fallen down yet. It was not like that, of course. We built our home in '98. The wall had been there for quite some time. I don't know how long that wall's been there before '98, but it's been a substantial upgrade to noise and vibration, and it's, you know, to me, it's mostly the big, huge cement trucks and the gravel trucks that come by. I don't know the tonnage of those vehicles, but they're pretty large. And some of the heavy equipment that moves back and forth, earth-moving equipment. And, you know, I don't know, he was talking about the good transportation. I don't know how much that differs from the heavy. The ones we hear and the vibrations we get are from the industrial trucks, not so much the people that are moving goods and services and stuff back and forth. It's the huge earth movers, etc. So, you know, in the last 10 years, it's been substantial,
And I'm sure if they did any study, I'm sure in the morning, one of our gentlemen there, John, talked to us in the HOA. I think I had 60 to 70 trucks one morning in the summer. Now I think they start later at 7, but it's substantial.
Thank you, sir.
Next.
Up next is Darby Shoup. Hold on, please.
My question doesn't really relate to the study, since obviously you don't have a lot of information on it, but it does relate to the traffic and the speed that happens on Camelback. It's near impossible to make a left-hand turn out of Villanueva onto Camelback, and so what mitigation will you be doing between now and a year from now when you have the study results? I've never seen anybody pull somebody over for speeding on Camelback.
Yeah. Well, I can speak to speeding on Camelback. I do have Detective Ed Cronin here with us here on back wall. If you don't mind waving at us. I'm sure he will let Chief Espinosa know of that comment. If there's speeding going on Camelback, we'll certainly have PD come out there and slow it down. Be glad to. I will say that's not the first complaint I've heard of Villanueva. I will tell you, I think eventually there will be a traffic light at Villanueva and Camelback. I don't know when, but I see it coming. Not the first concern I've heard about that. But we will slow down Camelback. And Detective Cronin, thank you for being here with us tonight. Up next we have Christina Hansher.
So first of all, I will say, I do appreciate the seats that we're sitting on. I believe those would be allowed based upon the restrictions, since these are in Litchfield Park. So I don't think that's a problem. Groceries, I believe, would be allowed, according to what I've heard. So I don't believe that would be a problem. I grocery shop at Fry's, which is in Litchfield Park. So according to what was spoken about, if I'm interpreting it correctly, I don't believe that our groceries would be impacted based upon the restrictions if they were enforced. So I think, to your points, totally agree. Appreciate our truckers providing to us in the city, and from everything I heard, it sounds like that's not a concern. I will say we do live in the village, and our house does back up to Camelback. Our kids' bedrooms. Not quite sure why a Jake brake needs to be going off at 3 o'clock in the morning, but it wakes me up very, very commonly. Wakes up my teenager, has to get up for school, I gotta get up for work, and it's frustrating. I will say, I'm sure that there's some sort of equitable solution. Trust that our city government is advocating for our best interests, so thank you for that. I would encourage anyone here that is opposed to potential solutions that are in the best interest of the citizens of Litchfield, come over to my house. Come spend the night. Come hang out in my backyard anytime. And I mean that literally. Spend the night. I got a guest room right up against Camelback. Doesn't matter what night it is. I guarantee you will have a different appreciation for why we're here and why we care. So, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
So Matt, I'll ask you a question real quick, because you brought up a good point. Why didn't you do a Jake brake ordinance?
We could certainly look at that. I don't know the history as to why or in the city, why we have or haven't, I couldn't tell you. But we will certainly look into that issue.
That was the comment, right? And you've mentioned in your comments about Jake brakes, but yet that doesn't seem to have been.
How is this not any different from the format
because
that
I'm
you
asking a
were
question.
about before?
I'm asking a question.
Yeah, I get that you're
It's
asking a
Q&A.
question, but.
It's Q&A.
She was
You
asking
didn't
a
fill out a
question.
form.
Come on, guys.
Let's move on.
You raise his hand, we call on him. We will do the same with everybody. Please.
That is one mitigation effort we'll look at. To the point, I agree. We have had it said that we're going to answer people that do Q&A cards, and let's do that.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up is Robert Shoup.
I didn't really come here to speak, I came here more to support the community, because we live on the north side of Camelback, so we're not in Litchfield Park. But every time we buy something from Amazon, they send their tax money to Litchfield Park. So we do help out a little bit. But the stretch from Dysart to Litchfield is a speedway. And the noise is one thing, but if you pave it over and you make it smoother, it's going to increase the speed, increase the danger, increase the convenience for more people to use it. I mean, every morning and every evening we hear drag racers on the street and that sort of thing. And some of them are coming out of Litchfield Park too, out of Villanueva. So it's not just through traffic, some of it's our local traffic. But I'm concerned that pulling out of our little area, it's not safe. We can't make a left turn because there's a center median right there. So we either have to drive down the canal to make a left turn at the neighboring property, or go all the way down past Litchfield Park and make a U-turn so we can go east on Camelback. So when they do investigate a traffic light there at Villanueva, they need to look at the whole intersection.
Thank you, sir. Up next is Joe Sovich. Mr. Sovich, while you're coming, I've got emails from you on trucking before, so thank you for being here tonight. I remember your name.
Good evening. Joe Sovich, lived in Litchfield Park since 1986, in the Green since 2005. And just to reiterate, the noise level, the pollution level on Camelback between Litchfield Road and to the west is unsafe. It's just unsafe. What we're breathing, just like Rick Show's wall, my wall is basically cracking. And from 3 to 4 o'clock in the morning to pretty much sunset, every day except for Saturday night, because they don't build on Sunday out to the west. And I'm not talking about commercial vehicles, I'm talking about the cement trucks and the gravel trucks and the noise level they put off and the pollution level they put off. When you have El Mirage Road and you can do all that is built, all that is out by El Mirage Road, go north to Northern Parkway. Northern Parkway was built for this purpose, not to have Camelback turn into a highway. It's really turning into an unsafe road and an unhealthy road. And that's my opinion. I've been living in the Greens for 17 years, and it's just, except for Saturday night, you can actually sleep. Even with sound machines during the week, just like this lady said there, it's horrible. And that's my point. And the study that we're putting up here isn't going to be complete until August of 23.
Probably final August.
Doesn't seem like it needs to be taken that long, but whatever.
Thank you, Mr. Sovich. Up next is Dale Turner. Dale Turner.
Howdy. First of all, I want to thank you guys for having this. I really appreciate it. And I know that MAG is looking at what's out there, but there's 2 million feet of warehouse under construction right now that's not open yet. And no matter what you say, you can call Camelback a truck road, but it's a 2-lane road. That's what it is. And it doesn't matter what you write down on the paper. And all you got to do is get the light at Litchfield and Camelback behind 2 or 3 FedEx trucks, semis, or FedEx or UPS trucks, and watch them go down to 1 lane right there. And you're going 10 miles an hour. and it is not built. Someday it may be, but that's going to be 20 years from now. Because they've allowed all the traffic on there, and I appreciate you guys' stoplight down there, and I also appreciate your saying FedEx trucks are supposed to turn and go to 303, but maybe the trucking industry should see that their people do that, because the FedEx trucks still go east, the semis. Go to and from going east, even though they promised Maricopa County they wouldn't. So their word is no good. And the other thing that I would like to basically say, and it's been said, is I have to go Camelback all the time because it's my only way out. And the truck traffic is horrible on there. And I would encourage you guys to reinstate the ban, let the traffic go to 10 and to Northern, which is where it was designed to go, and come off of 303. There's absolutely no reason you have to drive 5 miles from 101 to 303 on Camelback Road if you're a through truck.
Yeah, you're here.
Thank you, sir. Up next is Anita Mosley. Anita Mosley.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. My husband and I have lived in Litchfield Park in the village since 2015 when we built our house there. And we looked at houses that were closer to Camelback Road, and we had that very same perspective. This is going to get busy. And so we live 2 streets over, and I leave home about 5:45. I'm a school teacher, and I turn eastbound on Camelback Road, and the first time the ban went into effect and I came upon a pile of garbage that had been dumped at our entranceway, I started to laugh because it was exactly what you would expect from the preteens that I teach. I'm gonna dump on it. But by the time I got back in the afternoon, it was finished and cleared away. But the worry I have is driving eastbound and then turning westbound off of Litchfield Road and then coming westbound onto Camelback. The traffic is fast and furious, and everybody has their opinion, and they're all valid, every one of them. But my fear is that that intersection at Litchfield and Camelback Road is dangerous because truckers will back up in big trucks, cement trucks, and big rock trucks, and the heavy trucks that aren't carrying goods like to Amazon and so forth, but they're carrying building materials, and they're scary, and they're coming fast, and they don't stop in time to hit the lights. So you have to not only watch right or left before you're turning anywhere, but you have to watch before you go forward. So my concern, I think, is the fact that it's not going to get better, it's going to get worse because the ambient noise is going to increase. We're going to have trouble with it for a long time. And I don't know that a restriction anyway is going to solve everything, but I believe that there should be some consideration like on both sides of the road, literally. I think that we shouldn't, the truckers should have maybe brakes on, that they can't travel so fast. And I know that people can't travel very fast on Camelback Road anyway. But this is something that I think is of concern. The noise is worse, it's gonna get bad, it's gonna keep on getting bad, and the people in Litchfield Greens have it really bad, and we in the village have it terrifically horrible also. And, but again, it's an emotional response, but it's a safety thing also. And I do encourage you to be careful as you drive both east and westbound on Camelback Road. It's dangerous there. And thank you again for sponsoring this.
Thank you, ma'am. Next up, and I asked you before, so we'll see if I pronounce your last name right. Mr. Ron DeCandia?
Yeah.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Ron DeCandia. I lived with my wife for the last 10 years between Litchfield Road and Dysart. My backyard abuts the Camelback Road. I've observed the traffic patterns as well as the noise levels and vibration and pollution as well as everyone else here. And what I would like to say to the trucking industry is you guys are rude. And for the following reason. Truckers know how to observe speed limits. Correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not a trucker, I'm a retired high school teacher at West Neck Aviation High School. And I find that your guys come in from the east, headed westbound to Litchfield Road at excessive speeds, beyond the speed limit, and I think they have to use engine braking in order to control the vehicle. Possibly they're also trying to save the street brakes, the wheel brakes. I don't know enough about it technically to be able to say why at 6 o'clock in the morning a trucker's coming in from east to west and he's using engine braking. At the very least, please put up engine braking prohibited signs. From Litchfield Road eastbound to Dysart, in support of the other comments that people have made, it's a drag strip, okay? It's everybody, it's not just kids, it's not the preteens. I've taught high school kids, I know how they are. But everyone is speeding, coming off of the light. When the light turns green, it's a mad rush down to Dysart. There's no, because of, if the mayor is still here, I'd like to thank him for the wall in my backyard. Really good job. Really helped mitigating the noise for the last 10 years, as well as the light off of Fry's. So that's worked well. But the issue now is speed. Slow down, everybody, and the noise levels will go down, all right? The period of time that the ban was in effect, all I could do was sit in my backyard and go, ah, oh, that's nice, okay? And then the ban was, lifted, and the trucks resumed, and it was night and day. It was just so dramatic a change in noise, vibration, and pollution levels that I just wanted to add my 2 cents to the technical study that was done here in association with you. Come on into my house, all right? Come on over, sit in the backyard, 6 o'clock in the morning on a work day, all right? I'm fortunate, I'm retired, I get to sleep in now. God's good. And what's going on here is the engine braking. That's a really bad one, okay? It really is. And then the drag strip environment coming off of Litchfield going to Dysart. Personally witnessed a number of really nasty accidents at the Litchfield Camelback intersection as well as the Dysart Camelback intersection, and that needs to be mitigated as well. Safety issue. Okay. Thank you very much for listening.
Up next is Derek Skanes. Hello, sir.
Good evening, everyone. My wife and I, we lived for 14 years near Dysart and Camelback, so we're quite familiar with all the truck noise. But I want to say something up front. I'm not against the truckers, okay? My father was in the trucking industry his whole life. He retired as an owner-operator running his own equipment. So I'm quite familiar with the trucking industry. I've never been a trucker, okay, but I've got familiarity with what's going on. But that being said, I liked the ban when the ban came out because from my house, the noise, as everyone else has commented about, has gotten incredibly to a much higher degree than it was obviously 14 years ago when we moved in. I think everybody here would agree we don't need a study to tell us that, right? All due respect to this gentleman and his talk about the study, we don't need a study. We know what's going on. And we're all here because we want help in mitigating the noise and all the other issues that are going on with the trucks. So my point is, I'm familiar with the trucking industry to some degree. I'm not against trucks. But trucks have their place, and I'll give you an example. My father told me I would never drive my truck to your house. And I said, well, why? Well, most residential streets aren't designed for those trucks in terms of maneuverability, making corners, the weight, the noise that disrupts neighborhoods. He said, it's about respect for the neighborhood. And my feeling is, I feel that that's where the trucking industry needs to come together and have respect for the neighborhood. There's plenty more residential homeowners and citizens that live in the area than there are trucks and trucking companies, okay? And I think it's about respect for the neighborhoods and coexisting with us peacefully. I was also going to bring up the engine braking issue because I hear it at nighttime too when I'm trying to sleep with my windows open when the weather is nice and the trucks slow down to the intersection at Dysart. There's no need for the engine braking. I understand what it is. I've had a pickup truck that offers engine braking, so I'm familiar with it, but it's not necessary in the city, and like others have said, there are cities and towns across the United States that have those ordinances, no engine braking. So my feeling is reinstitute the ban because it's respect for the neighbors, but if you can't do that, at a minimum, it wasn't in the list of things that you could potentially consider, put the ban on the engine braking to help cut that noise. That's my points. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. As we go along, I want to thank everyone for being civil. It makes things easier. We appreciate that. Next up is Carrie Sakaris. Okay.
My name is Carrie Zakaris. I live in the city of Goodyear. I'm in Palm Valley 9. I have 2 properties that sit very close to Camelback. I'm not right off of Camelback. I couldn't even imagine the noise that they're hearing on the other side of the water, and I'm 3 houses in. So I started my own little independent study because the noise is excessive. The engine braking, which starts roughly around 2 in the morning, starts with the excessive speeds from the trucks coming down Camelback. Now, I work as a nurse here in the city, in the state of Arizona. So I come home sometimes 2, 3 in the morning, and often there's semi-trucks coming down, materials trucks from Vulcan Industries, which is off at Indian School, and often we're traveling down Camelback together as I get home, and they keep forging on to the 303, using Camelback more as a pass-through than what the intended of the ordinance to restrict the through traffic. Those are the trucks that we're trying to stop. No one came here today trying to disrespect the trucking industry and say that we don't realize the importance of trucks, because we certainly do. My father was a Teamster. I understand the trucking industry out of Chicago very well. I certainly didn't need a lesson in what trucks did, which is why I said it was condescending to begin a conversation with that. I didn't begin my conversation with, oh, I'm a nurse, so if you have someone who survived, you can thank me later. It's condescending. You understand. We would like some restrictions put in before the study's done in August of 2023. I emailed the city of Goodyear and was told they won't do anything until they get the results of the study in August of 2023. So we can't cut down the speed of Camelback, which is currently at 45 miles an hour. Then it jumps down to 35. It's excessive speed, which is part of the problem. If we slow Camelback and put in a no engine braking, which they wouldn't have to do if we had a slower speed. All of it comes together. And then maybe they'd be encouraged to use something like Northern Parkway, which doesn't have traffic lights on it. You could go down that thing at 90 miles an hour. I would never do that, officer. But you could. You could go 90 miles an hour on that thing. They can get through so much easier than coming off of Camelback Road.
It's a half mile shorter.
It is a half mile shorter.
It's a half mile. I ran it 10 times each model.
And there is something to be said about not just the speed, but the amount of dust that is coming from the increased traffic. And it's not just from the trucks. There's increased cars because the speed is so high. My patio is coated, and if you guys start checking yours too, it's coated in a fine black film, which I collected once on an auger plate and sent it off to a lab. That's a nutrient, it grows. It started to grow carcinogenics, which is what caused cancer. That's what we're breathing in our lungs. Where is that in the study? Because I'm more concerned about everyone in this room developing some kind of weird cancer from what we're breathing in. I mean, isn't everyone else? The noise? Well, let's face it, we live by the Air Force Base. Are we worried about a little noise? No, it's the excessive noise. So that's why I hope that the city comes to some kind of agreement with the city of Goodyear and lowers that speed limit of Camelback from Saraville all the way to Litchfield.
Thank you, ma'am. Up next is Anthony Park. Anthony Park.
I just wanted to express my support for the city reintroducing the ban on reimposing the truck restrictions on Camelback Road. It was so nice when the truck restrictions were in place. I live in Litchfield Greens, about a block away from Camelback Road. And we hear it every night. We hear the sound from the trucks and we feel the vibration. We did a major remodel about 2 years ago, and one of the goals of that remodel was to try to reduce the noise and the vibration from the trucks. Newer windows with better insulation, newer insulation of the walls, and the attic, it helps, but it's not sufficient. So I'm not sure what more we could do ourselves to mitigate the problem. I have a really nice mattress. You know, you can set a glass of wine on there, you can jump on the bed, you're not going to spill the wine. But I can feel the vibrations from the trucks when I'm laying in bed at night, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. It's pretty obnoxious.
Thank you, sir. Last but certainly not least is Mr. John Connolly. John.
To speak softly, Keith, how are you? So honestly, I think everybody hit on a lot of great points here, so I don't have a lot to add. I do want to piggyback on that, you know, the way you spoke to us, and this is a targeted conversation now. I'm the president of the HOA of the Greens. I also live in the Greens. I want the ban. So although they're talking about mitigation X, Y, and Z, most companies that have grown over the last 20, 30 years, they had to deal with something called the public. There was outreach to the public. If a company grew 2 or 3-fold, what can we do different? How are we impacting our community? The Truckers Association is not that. These aggregate companies have not done that. They've not reached out to us and see what the impact has been over the last 10, 15 years. As they grow exponentially every year, they don't care. So we're sitting at the ban. As far as Litchfield Greens is concerned, we are at the ban, and we hope it goes through. Truckers do have their place. It is Northern Parkway. It's fantastic, and it is 0.4 miles shorter. I ran it in my car and my truck 4 different times, 4 different days, and it's quicker via time. So the fact that we're not using second grade math for you guys to actually save a couple of bucks to get north, you want to do things the way you do it every day. Go out and make the donuts every day, drive the same way to work every day. You do not care about the impact to us. Our quality of life, it's your position that's putting these, I guess, bad feelings out there. If your industry came to us and said, what can we do better 5 years ago, 10 years ago, it probably would be a different conversation. But we're tired. No one's listened to us. We've tried to work with the city. The city's gotten challenges every way they go. And here we go, we introduce a bill into Congress or the state legislature that targets our city. No other city got targeted in this. We got targeted. So now, I don't know if that makes you an ally with us or where we start a relationship to get this thing moving in the right direction. But right now, I'm at a ban. I don't want to see anything but a ban. Head up to Northern, you talk about going to DC. I worked there for years. Trucks have their place in DC too. If you're in New York, they have something called a parkway. Millions of miles. You know who's allowed on it? Cars. Trucks are not allowed on the parkways. They're allowed on the expressways. Everybody has a restriction. And it just seems like you guys are not happy with Litchfield Park. And this is the only ones you guys are going after. Scottsdale's got restrictions, Gilbert, Avondale, every municipality has a restriction. We can't get one. We can't get one to get the quality of our life for everybody that lives. This is just not Camelback. This affects Litchfield Road, it affects Dysart Road, and probably will affect Indian School. We can't get anything. And you guys are fighting us. And then using the excuse that we're not going to get groceries. It's an embarrassment. It's an embarrassment to your industry. And I really wish there's a team out there that is willing to work with us a little bit better than that. Thank you.
May I ask for a point of clarification?
Tony?
So is my recollection is that truck ban actually never went into enforcement at all. There was a stated posted date of when it would go into enforcement. We entered into negotiations, and there was never enforced during that negotiation period, and then the moratorium went in place. So there was no period of time that truck ban was in effect. Sounds right.
I'm pretty sure Tony's correct. What he's talking about. So we sent, the ordinance was passed in the spring of 22, when you think about it. And we sent out letters to truck companies to give 90 days notice that this was coming. They would have, if I think I'm right on these dates, that would have started on May 1, 2022. However, the bill was dropped before that. And because of that, we agreed to hold the state of enforcement pending this study. I will say, though, the signs were posted before this date, because they have to be when people know it's coming. So I'm not a trucker, I don't know. But I would say that truckers were probably avoiding this area before May 1st, just because the signs are here. But I would agree with your question, Tony. We never started enforcing because it wasn't May 1 yet. The bill got dropped first.
Thank God for voluntary compliance, because that's the part of the organization we want to talk to. That's the regional side.
That is all our questions tonight, guys. Again, we thank you everyone for being here. We'll have another meeting once the study is done. God bless you guys. Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Thank you.